Good morning, guys, or good afternoon, whether you're joining me from the present or the future. Welcome back to another one of my FutureFight Vanguard videos. Today is Monday the 16th, which you guys know what that means. That means this week is regionals. It will be Atlanta regionals this weekend at the CNN Center. I will definitely be competing and live streaming, recording footage there and stuff like that. So if you're headed out to that, make sure you come and say hi to me. But today we're going to be talking about the FutureFight Duo deck. So without further ado, let's get right into that. We're going to unflip all of our strides here as usual. Alright, and then we're going to start reviewing the Duo deck. So the Duo deck is our last deck that we have to review from our Clan Booster 5 Prismatic Divas set. It's kind of like uh, it's a weird deck. You kind of gain advantage. It's definitely focused around the classic duo build of having like the same cards in your hand, and if you reveal 3 of a card, then you can do an effect. Or usually you can do an effect, and then if you reveal a 3 of card, you can do an additional effect after that. So it becomes pretty helpful when you're trying to gain advantage over your opponent, trying to take them down. Uh, and yeah, so let's get right into the abilities. So we have 7 grade 3s here. We decided to run Duo Temptation Reet as our main grade 3. No Break Ride in this deck. I know that this deck used to be run with a Break Ride with this, but I just think the Break Ride's like way too slow in this meta to keep up with your opponent. So you definitely need to be able to keep up with your opponent in advantage and cards. So that is why we just ride her normally now. She does have a Limit Break 4 ability that we rarely use, but we will go over it. So Limit Break 4, at the end of the battle that this unit attacks a Vanguard, we can counterblast 2. Or first we have to discard 2 duo cards from our hand, and if they have the same name, then we can pay the cost to counterblast 2. So we can counterblast 2, and then stand this unit, and then it gets 3,000 power. So it restands itself for discarding 2 of the same card. Not bad if you're in like a kind of pressured situation where your opponent won't allow you to stride by not riding to grade 3. And we do not run Sabreeze in this deck because it's not necessary to keep up with your opponent when we have skills like this, like limit breaks. So definitely like a good advantage if you're playing against like grade 1 7Cs and all that stuff. Most of the abilities in this deck are not G-Break. I actually think all of them are not G-Break, yeah, for the most knowledge in the main deck. So you can fight early game decks pretty well. Blasters, 7Cs, stuff like that is very good. So then its second ability is when this unit attacks a Vanguard, you can Soul Blast 1 and choose one of your duo rear guards and return it to your hand. I actually misread this before when I was playing with it because I just realized that it said when it attacks a Vanguard. I thought it was just like an activation skill like during the main phase, but that's even better because you can attack with your units and then get them out of the way and use their abilities. So pretty good. Moving on to our backup grade 3, we have Duo Sprinkle Light Priani at 3. So what Priani does is at the end of your turn, if it's your Vanguard, you can Soul Blast 1. And if you do, you can choose 2 or more cards with Duo in its name, with the same card name as each other from your hand and reveal them. And if you reveal 2 cards, you get to search your deck for a grade 3 Duo card other than Priani, which would be Reet, and write it on Vanguard as Rest, and then shuffle your deck. And then if you reveal 3 or more cards with the same name, then you get to draw a card. So ideally, this is our backup grade 3 because it gets us into Reet when we're not on Reet. So either way, at the end of the first stride turn, you should be on Reet guaranteed. As far as Priani goes, like ideally you do want to Soul Blast 1 and reveal 3 cards with the same name as each other, but if you only have 2 to reveal just to get into Reet, that's not too bad either. You just would be missing out on drawing a card. Then we have our grade 2s. We have 4 Duo Fantasia Lamry. So what Lamry does is its first ability is it is 11k attacker as long as you have Reet in your Vanguard's name. So it gets 2000 power when it attacks. And then its second ability is when it's returned to your hand from your rearguard circle. If you have a Vanguard with Reet in its name, search your deck for one Duo Fantasia Lamry and reveal it to your opponent and put it into your hand. So you get to search a copy of it just by returning it to your hand, which is pretty good. Can help you get some attackers on board. If your opponents keep blowing your attackers, just call one of these, bounce it, and then get another one from your deck. The only bad thing about this deck is it has no recycle. So when you're drawing all these cards or searching all these cards out of your deck, it will reach a standstill point after a while, where you're not able to really do much more, which is where the finishers of the deck come in. But we'll get to those in a second. And then we have 4 Duo Far Marine Chateau Thames. So what Thames does is this is one of our 2 combo pieces that draw us a bunch of cards to get advantage over our opponent. So this is the grade 2 version. The other one is a grade 1 version piece. They basically do the exact same thing. So when this unit is returned to your hand from rearguard circle, if you have a Vanguard with Duo in its name, you can counterblast 1, and if you do, you draw a card. And then you can choose up to 3 cards named Thames in your hand and reveal them. And then if you reveal 3 cards, then you get to unflip 1 card from your damage zone. So what ends up happening is most of the time you just want to use Thames when you have 3 of them, or use Peace when you have 3 of them, and bounce them to your hand and draw cards for free, just because you won't be spending a counterblast because every single time you'll unflip. So when you use it with Darling, Darling bounces them all. It's basically a free net 3, so it can draw you a bunch of cards pretty quickly. Moving on to Roan, this is our main grade 2 ride target. It is a good rearguard as well, but it's really, really good on turn 2 for the most part. When this unit attacks a Vanguard and it hits, if we have a Bermuda Triangle Vanguard, which we will have if we are, of course, on Roan, then we get to choose another one of our Bermuda Triangle rearguards, return it to hand, and then we search our deck for 1 card with the same name as that unit, and then put it into our hand. So this helps you in the early game if you only have like 1 Thames and 1 Piece. Like having Roan or even Chulum will help you get into the other pieces of them to start drawing out your cards effectively, so that you're not too worried about where your advantage is going to come from. So yeah, that's the purpose of that. Then we run 4 Stride Fodders, getting into the grade 1s. We want to Stride in this deck, pretty self-explanatory. We run 4 Prism Duo Aria. This is our Prism PG. We basically just it is the Prism and Duo PG technically because it has both names, but this is our Duo PG, and we only run it because it has Duo in the name. So that way we can use it for like a special counterblast like Roan or stuff like that. Then we have 4 Piece, exactly what I was talking about when I was talking about Thames. Basically does the exact same thing, except in grade 1 form, and you reveal Piece when you do her effect to unflip. So just draws you cards. Then we have 1 Duo Gorgeous Lady Kazuha. So what Kazuha does is when an attack hits a Vanguard during the battle that this unit was a part of while boosting, then you can counterblast 1 Duo card, and you search... you choose one of your other rearguards with Duo in its name, return it to your hand, and then search for 1 card with the same name as that unit and put it into your hand and shuffle your deck. So this basically does what Roan does, except the attack does not have to, or sorry, yeah, the attack does have to hit either way. So this basically does exactly what Roan does, except this card's on the boosting end. So everything's just about getting our pieces to hand so that we can use our effects effectively. So yeah. Moving on to our starters, we do run 2 of our starters. We run Duo Lover Singer Darling. So what Darling does is it just has an activation skill. It has Forerunner like every other starter, so we can move it back when we ride a grade 1. Obviously pretty self-explanatory, like most starters in the game have that nowadays. And then it has an activation skill that says you can just move this unit into the soul, and then if you have a Bermuda Triangle Vanguard, choose one of your units with Duo in the name and return all your rear guards on the field with the same copy to your hand. So what you want to do is when you get like 3 Thames or 3 Piece, you can just use a Darling and target one of them and then bounce all of them to your hand, draw 3 for free. So really good. Then we run 8 criticals, but 4 of them are special. So 4 of them are Chulum. What Duo Love Trump Chulum does is when this unit, or when another one of your units is returned to your hand from rearguard circle, if you have a Vanguard with Duo in its name, you can counter +1 and put this card on the top of your deck, and then you get to search for a card with the same name as the unit that was bounced to your hand. So basically what ends up happening is not only do you get to put back criticals into your deck, which is very good, you get to do a 1-for-1 as you get the card that you need for it to get your pieces to have a 3 of. It helps you in the early game to get Thames or Peace in combination with Roan or even Reet, so that you can go for the Stride Reet effects to restand. So pretty good. Then we have 4 duo draw triggers. Tigris. So what Tigris does is basically just a vanilla draw trigger. And then we have Melja, which is the dual heal trigger. So you like the theme of this deck is duo, so you do want to run a lot of duo cards just because there are a lot of cards that require like discarding duos with the same name, like, or counterblasting a duo. Like, it's very few cards that you want to run not duo. Then for the strides, we have 4 of the brand new stride Duo Everlasting Reet. So what this does is at the end of the battle that this unit attacked, you can counterblast 1, choose 3 cards from your hand with the same name as each other and discard them. And then if you do, you get to put this unit into the G-Zone face up and then choose a face down Reet from your G-Zone, stride it on Vanguard Circle, and then it loses 1 drive check and its auto abilities. So what this does is it's kind of like a restander. The only reason that it's not an actual restander is it doesn't get to stack triggers on itself because you are striding a brand new Reet after you use the effect. So it's kind of like a next stage in my opinion. Like, it's very close to next stage from Gear Chronicle. So it can help you finish out a lot of your games really quickly. Pretty good card. Then we run 2 Perfect Performance Angie. It has a Generation Break 2 ability that says Counterblast 2 and flip a face down card from your G-Zone face up, and then you get to choose any number of cards on any fighter circle other than Vanguard circle and return them to the hand. This unit gets plus 5,000 power for every returned card, and then if you return 5 or more cards, you get to draw a card, and if you return 7 or more, then it gets plus 1 drive till the end of the turn. So basically this is useful against link chokers because since it says return cards, not return units, you get to bounce lock cards. So it helps you get out of a bad matchup, and it's also just good when you have nothing else to go into. You can even in this deck use it to bounce all of your rearguards. If your rearguards are Peace or Thames, then you're just drawing more cards for free. So that's why we do run 2 in this deck. Then we have 2 Olivia, pretty much our bread and butter like card that we always run in a Bermuda G-Zone. Like, I feel like it's too good to run. Like, you don't have enough good options in most Bermuda decks to not justify running it. So you do counterblast 1. When this unit attacks, if the number of face-up cards in your G-Zone is 1 or more, you can counterblast 1 and flip an Olivia from your G-Zone face-up. And then if you do, you get to choose up to 5 of your rearguards. And then if all of them have different names, you can bounce all of them to your hand, or the ones that you selected at least, and then call 2, 1 to your front row, 1 to your back row, and this unit gets plus 1 critical. So as you're entering the mid to late game, like, it can really pressure your opponent into a win. If your opponent does not have the guard to shield it or protect against the multi-attacks. So it can be pretty good pressure in the mid-late game. Then we run 2 Lucky Rise Alprina. This is basically just our first stride card. It is actually very useful despite how simple its ability may be. But its ability is Soul Blast 1 during the main phase, and then you can choose 2 of your rearguards and return them to your hand, and that's it. So what that does is if we have Thames or Peace set up, or even like Chulum or anything like that, it gets all of our abilities off at the same time, and it allows us to just go kind of wild with drawing cards in our engine in the early game. Rounding out our strides that are aggressive, we have Festal Finale Final Priscilla. This is our GB8 card, and at the end of the battle that this unit attacks a Vanguard, we can discard a card and return all of our rearguards to our hand and choose up to 5 cards from our hand, call them to a separate rearguard circle, and they get plus 5,000 power. So basically it just allows you more multi-attacks. It does kind of suck because you can't put triggers on any of your units except for Vanguard, because you're just going to end up bouncing and resetting your field anyways. Because it does say bounce all, like, it doesn't give you a choice really. But calling the units back to the field and them getting plus 5,000 is kind of like you checked 4 triggers. So it is good in that respect, and I can understand why Bushiroad did that. Moving on to our G Guardians, we run 5. So we run 2 Best Sparkle Sandy, one of the best G Guardians in the game. This is our G Guard from the new Fighters collection that says when this card is placed on the guard circle, we can turn a G unit face up, or a G Guardian face up. And then if we do, this unit gets plus 5,000 shield for every 2 cards in our hand, and then we can counterblast 1 and get another plus 5,000 shield. So basically, depending on how many cards are in our hand, like this can become a huge guard for us. Usually in this deck, you have a lot of cards in your hand, so it's not really you don't really have to worry about how much shield this card's going to give you. But just for example, even if you just have 4 cards in your hand and you counterblast 1 on top of that, this is a 41k shield. So that just gives you guys an example. If you have like anywhere decent of a hand, then you probably won't be worried about how much guard shield this is going to give you, because it's either going to give you a 3 to pass or a no pass in most cases. Moving on, Hand in Hand Leona at 1 of. So we have Hand in Hand Leona. When it's placed on the guard circle, we can choose one of our rear guards, bounce it to the hand, and then if we do, we get to choose a card from our hand, call it to the guard circle, and then if that unit has the same name as the card returned to hand, then that unit gets plus 5,000 shield. So what this allows us to do is, like, we can even play like Thames or Peace, and then if we're intending on going into Leona, we can bounce something with Leona and call something else, and then reveal like 3 Thames or 3 Peace, whichever one we revealed, and then we can draw a card for free. So pretty good. Like, you'll be able to draw during your opponent's turn, so it can give you some extra guard that your opponent previously wasn't expecting, which can sometimes clutch you the game depending on like what kind of play your opponent's going for. Then we have 1 High Society Citron. High Society Citron says when it is placed on the guard circle, we can choose 1 grade 1 or greater card from our hand and call it to rear guard circle. And if we do, this unit gets plus 10,000 shield. We're basically running this for the Narukami matchup, like when they go VMAX. It's pretty game ending, so you just want to be able to interrupt that somehow. And in Bermuda, running Citron is a lot safer than running Dismal, because they might just blow up your whole field before they decide to attack you with VMAX, in which case Dismal would be useless. So it is useful to be able to like alter your field with Citron as they are attacking you, and so that they won't be able to use VMAX skill to kill you. So then we run 1 Nasha, basically just a regular G-Guard, the most regular one we have. When it's placed on the guard circle, we can choose 1 card from our hand, reveal it, and then if we have a unit with the same name as this card, or the same grade as this card, this unit gets plus 5,000 shield. So it's just a 31k shield. Nothing special to really discuss about it, but it just helps you guard some very simplistic attacks from your opponent. Moving right into the games here, we are going to get our game 1 started up here. So it looks like game 1 we're playing against Gear Chronicle. It looks like Zodiac Time Beast from his hand. He has a terrible hand, which I actually did not know about. But we have to ride Peace, which I absolutely despise doing. But he did not ride upwards, so I just assumed that he had a bad hand from there. I actually should have no-guarded the last attack because I had Roan in my hand, and I wasn't paying attention, I guess, during that time. So he rides the grade 2, plays a booster behind it. We take the 16. He does check a critical, so we take 2 damage, and they're both criticals. But we do draw a Chulum, lucky enough for us. So we do attack Vanguard, get a Darling, and bounce to get Thames and Thames. So now we're completely set up before we go into grade 3 for our draw engine. Our opponent does G-Assist, but does not get it, unfortunately for them. And he attacks 16 to our rear guard circle, which kind of sucks for us because we would have like plussed like really hard had he attacked Vanguard, but he also would have crit us, so it's kind of like a take it or leave it type thing. We do attack with Reet for 16. We check 2, one of them is a critical. We do crit to Vanguard, power to rear guard, and then he guards our rear guard, and he decides to G-Assist again. This time he does get a grade 3, but it is Chrono Fang Tiger G, unfortunately for him. It is not Chrono Jet, so he decides to just take the Chrono Fang G. I guess he decides to just, you know, take it instead of leaving it. He did forget to pay the G-Assist cost, which I did remind him of right here. So he starts paying the cost for G-Assist. and then he chooses 2 from hand as well, and goes to the remove from the game zone. Then he does stride into split Pegasus. Kind of sucks for him that he doesn't have like a grade 2 or grade 3 in hand to make full use of split Pegasus. But he's kind of just in a very unfortunate situation right now. Like, it's kind of awkward. But I guess he thought that it would time leap because he's used to being on Chrono Jet. So he just said never mind on the skill and just went into an attack for Vanguard. I choose to no guard and he checks a critical. And so we take 2 damage. And then I decide to stride into the Reet. What I do is I play over Peace. I bounce 3 Thames, I draw 3 cards for free. And then I play Peace again, drawing another 3 cards for free. So since we have 4 Thames this time, we attack for 11, then 26. He G-guards us. The G-guard that he decides to go into is Urlu. So he puts back 2 for a 1 to pass, then a 3 to pass. We check our triggers. One of them is a heal, but we cannot heal, which is good for us because we would heal out of the limit break skill because the stride is limit break. So then our opponent like quit the game, so that's why we decided to like ride that new Reet and see what we would have checked anyways. Because I'm pretty sure like after PGing, he either would have PG'd with the Chrono Jet in his hand, which I'm assuming that he wanted to keep because he wanted to stride. So I'm assuming he would PG with this, and then he would G-guard the rear guard circle. But he didn't know what triggers I was going to check, so I guess he just quit the game, like, so that he wouldn't have to deal with it because it's just been such a bad game for him. Moving on to game 2. It looks like we are playing against Link Joker. Chaos Breaker to be more specific. He rides to grade 1. We ride a PG, unfortunately. We do check a Peace, though, which is really good for us. Because you do want to have like Peace or Thames like in the early game. But we do take that first damage, and then we take a second damage, and it is a heal. So we ride Roan, and we play a Chulam. We do check a critical, doing crit to Vanguard, power to rearguard. We bounce and get a Peace, and then we also use Peace skill to draw first, and then unflip, and then we use Chulam to get a Peace as well. So now we have 4 pieces in our hand. Then he rides Chaos Breaker, uses the Vanguard skill to counterblast 1, discard 1, and lock. I thought it was very foolish of him to lock Roan because Darling will like net me so much more advantage. But I guess he didn't realize that. A lot of people haven't played against this deck, so maybe assuming the game knowledge that he had. But then he also plays the crit and locks my other rearguard, so that's probably why he did that. So it was a good play. Then we do ride to grade 3 and stride into Alprina. We decide to bounce 2 with Alprina's skill, and we use Peace twice to draw 2 cards. Then we just decide to play Lamry on the rearguard circle, and we go for 26 to his Vanguard. He no guards. We do check a draw trigger, and then we're able to just attack him for 16. He does take it as well. And then he forgot to activate Chaos Breaker before drawing a card, so I guess he skipped it. So then he strides into Judgment Messiah, attacks our Vanguard for 16. I decided to take it so that I could be limit break 4, and then I G-guarded his rearguard, doing a no pass. And then he checks 3 non-triggers, unfortunately for him. We ride and stride. We decide to use Darling to bounce 2, then we use Peace, reveal 3, draw 2. And then we decide to just attack for 11. And then 26. He actually like kind of seals his own fate here as far as my stride, because I can't heal out of it because he decided to take a damage. So it is beneficial to us. But we do check double heal, which is kind of sack on my part. But he does G-guard into the screw. And then he draws and strides for turn into Chaos Universe. I don't know why he didn't go into this last turn. Like, it just seems like it would have been a lot more optimal. But he does go into Chaos Universe now. Makes me lock 1 behind Roan. And then makes me lock Lamry. And then he also uses Iron Skill to make me lock Iron. So pretty understandable as well. We decided to take a damage. Then we G-guard again into Citron for a 3 to pass. He does check a PG and a critical trigger, putting it all to his rear guard. Then we use a 10 to guard. Then we stride and we go into reet. Then we just attack for 32, hoping that we will check one of the cards that will give us a 3 of. However, we don't, so I'm pretty sure we would have been able to end the game right there had we had the third piece, but we were relying on checking it. We never checked it, so I guess that's just unlucky on our part. Our opponent does go for stride here, and he is GB5 currently, so we're seeing another Chaos Universe here. He uses Chaos Universe skill to make us lock one to the right of our Vanguard circle, so right there, and then he makes us lock our rear guard in the back. Then he just goes straight into attacking 11, then 26. We do G-guard with another Sandy. He does check a critical and nothing else, fortunately for us, and he doesn't have another PG in his hand, so we do decide to stride into Angie, and we just use Angie's skill to counterblast on flip and then bounce all the cards on the field to the hand. So we bounced our lock cards as well, getting us out of that kind of bad situation. Then we were able to just play 2 Lamreys, attack for 11, then 66. He guards with 21, 31, 41, 51, 61, 71, 76 for a 2 to pass. And then we do just check triggers and put all Vanguard, so our opponent does take a damage, and that ends up being the game. The reason why I all Vanguard did there is because I just believe that it would be better with the amount of triggers that were left in our deck to go for an all Vanguard, especially since we had quad drive. Like, I think it was very smart and dumb of him at the same time to 2 to pass. The reason why it was smart is because he probably wanted to conserve hand, and there probably wasn't a better option that he could have done not having a PG. But the dumb option is, like, you shouldn't, like, rely on your opponent not getting 2 triggers when they have a triple drive. And it's that late in the game, and you can count their triggers. So, starting our third game, it's the same guy back for a rematch. So, we decided to accept his rematch. We do ride, and we do get us a very solid hand this time. Like, this deck seems very consistent, but I don't know if I'm just getting the pieces or if it's, like, actually consistent. So we do take the rear guard and the Vanguard attack. We ride into Roan and call because we just want to have 2 on flip counterblasts. So he does take Roan. We counterblast 1 and then bounce to get 3 Thames in our hand. So right off the bat, we're like in a very good situation. He does discard 1 to make us lock 1, and he makes us lock the piece. Again, I don't think a very wise move, but this time with Carbon, he doesn't go for the crit trigger, so it's kind of awkward, honestly, because he left me with a way to get massive advantage without punishing me for it. So, of course, if our opponent doesn't punish us for it, we're just going to do it anyways. So he does use Zinc skill to shove into the soul and unflip. Then we no guard the Vanguard, and then his other rear guard we just guard. We stride with 2 cards, and we play Elprina, bounce 2, Thames, draw 2 for free. Then we play 3 and use Darling to draw 3 for free. Then we end up getting 2 Lamreys, so we just play those 2 Lamreys, and then we attack for 11. Then 26, we check a critical trigger and a draw trigger, attacking him for 21. So we're wearing down his hand slowly but surely. I don't think Link Choker can keep up with the amount of pressure that you were able to give them, being Bermuda, and it's just kind of like a really bad matchup for them, because whatever you lock, like, they can't do anything about it when you decide to unlock it. So we go into the main phase. He did use Chaos Universe skill to make me lock 1 card to my board, and then he goes into Photon. Like, see, like, that's an example of a play right there that's kind of like useless, because he plays over one of his cards to Photon me, so he effectively -1s himself. And then if I decided to, like, go into Angie here, like, it would have been a wrap. But I did decide to go into Re instead, just because I did have a 3 of in my hand. So I do check 3. He takes it, and then I discard 3 and ride into a new Re. Then he guards this one for a 1 to pass. Or sorry, he's thinking, I guess. So I told him that that was 1 to pass. He does 1 to pass it, and we don't check the trigger. So then we just attack him for 21, and then he survives the turn. I'm guessing we should have Angied just because I would have had another rearguard column, but I also wouldn't have had a restander, so it's kind of up in the air about that one. He does Soul Blast 2 Starvader so that he can kill our board. And then he goes into Chaos Universe yet again, uses the skill to make us lock one to our front circle. So he goes to the left of our Vanguard, we lock there. He makes us lock it to our back row, which is kind of like weird. Like, you kind of want to, like with Chaos Breaker, just lock your opponent out of attacking. But I guess maybe he gave up on that. I'm not very sure, but we did G-Guard here, and since we have 3 cards in our hand that are the same, we just go for Re again, because we know that he has a PG. So we check a critical trigger and a heal trigger, putting it to our rear guard, then we discard 3 and attack, and then we have a draw trigger, and he takes it, and that ends up being the game. So yeah, the duo deck is actually very, very strong. Like, can finish your opponent very quickly. Like, there's not much that they can effectively do about it unless they are also a deck that gets a lot of advantage. So yeah, if you guys like enjoy that, like, make sure you build it. But that has been the Future Fight for our duo series. Like, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, leave me a like and a comment down below letting me know what you liked or any questions that you might have. Make sure you subscribe and follow us on all of our social medias: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Patreon. And with that being said, this has been Josh from Cardfight Empire, and I'll see you guys on the next video.